It's exactly a week to go. Boy, are we in the red zone now. Exactly a week to go before Christmas, and your president last night was handing out gifts. So the takeaway is, take the gift. He just made things a lot easier on a lot of Americans. Anyway, in a nonpartisan kind of way. Wink, wink, nod, nod. We'll talk about that as well as actual gifting. It's National ReGifting Day. I didn't know this was a thing. I knew the term was kind of invented by Seinfeld all those years ago, but it's National ReGifting Day today. So we'll talk about that. In the news department, we'll talk about Brown University. There is an action. Remember yesterday we were talking about no questions are off the table when you're met with incredible incompetence and no transparency in that investigation, which is a clown show out of Providence, Rhode Island. Let's just admit it. It's a clown show. Well, now there is a real distinct possibility that the reason why we've all asked why they can't get a clear image of this alleged shooter, why we can't find a suspect, why they haven't found him yet, is because security cameras were disabled around the campus not too long ago. In fact, over the summer. Anyway, we'll get into all of that. Thanks for finding me. Appreciate you. Welcome to a week before Christmas, the Wicked Radio live stream, replay, wherever you like to find them, all your favorite platforms on Facebook and X and YouTube and the audio podcast as well, all that good stuff. Let's get right to it. The president's address last night. Well, let's start off with, first of all, what do you do when you address the nation? What does the president do? You're kind of like a figurehead in one way, not just the chief executive, but you're a cheerleader for the nation. You're supposed to talk about all the positive stuff. It's a chance for any president to get up there and talk about all the good stuff that's going on, and he certainly did that. So let's start off with all the things he talked about, all the positives. Now, a lot of this was based on him claiming how bad things were before and how he's fixing things. Of course, that's in there. But there were a lot of important nuggets in there as well. Here's a little sample.
Very simple. We are making America great again. Tonight, after 11 months, our border is secure. Inflation is stopped. Wages are up. Prices are down. Our nation is strong. America is respected. And our country is back stronger than ever before. We're poor.
That's the overall message, right? Of course, that's what you do when you address the nation right before Christmas, and it's, a whole big address and you talk about things. It was something more than that, though. This is why I say he was playing Trump Claus, or Santa Trump last night, because he had a lot of different things that will help out all of us. Finally, I think they finally figured out the messaging in talking about what's important going forward with all these things. And I got to tell you, being as objective as I possibly can, in my opinion, my takeaway was, this is probably his best speech ever. That's my take. That's just my personal opinion, and I'll tell you why. Because I thought it was clear, it was on point. We all know the Trump thing. He's great at rallies. I mean, nobody can hold a crowd for an hour and a half, 2 hours like that guy with just him talking, right? And of course, he goes off script, and the script writers took forever to figure out how to write for him. They couldn't, you can't keep it to a script except last night. You got to give him bullet points, and then he kind of goes off and meanders, and then he adds in, he fills in the blanks. Then he gets back to the bullet point. This was different. This was right on point. It was direct, and he hit all the major issues that everybody, first of all, cares about, that we all need to address, but also for you, me, everybody else, including your Trump-hating friends in your family circle or your work group or your whatever. It gives them an opportunity to not have to just take the gift that's coming. Because this is what he did last night in the major points, besides just bragging about how great the administration is. They all do that, right? He also talked about number one, the important thing. How are you going to drive down housing costs? That's one issue to anybody that's voting in this upcoming cycle, and the economy and the cost of just living, and incredibly important to anybody that's a younger voter in their 20s that wants to get into their life. That's why it was so important. And he tied that directly to why, the answer why, and so important that they're undertaking the immigration issue that they are. Tied it in perfectly and beautifully to that. Now, just don't take my word for it. Now, granted, is somebody like Newt Gingrich a Trump advocate, a supporter, a surrogate? Absolutely he is. Right, of course. Of course he's going to come out there and say all the positive things about the speech and why it was so good and all that other stuff. But listen to Newt for a second, because he says it way better than I ever could. Try to be objective about this and understand why this was such a directly important speech. This was Newt last night.
To watch President Trump give a 19-minute disciplined speech that covered that many facts was worthy of Ronald Reagan. That was a good speech. It was an important speech. Someday people will say it was one of the most important speeches of his career because it set the table for the entire debate over the next year and laid out what Biden did to make the country a disaster, what Trump has already done, and where we are going in general, and why that's the right direction. I think it's a very, very important speech.
Somebody like Newt Gingrich is going to say that anyway. Maybe not to that level, not to that extreme, but he makes a great point there. This is what he did. First of all, notice how he said that first of all, too. He said, on point, stayed focused. And that's important in that kind of a speech. That's different from the live rallies. That's totally different. But here's what he did, and I got to give Newt credit there because he laid it out exactly. He set the table going forward for what this administration does. I mean, your Trump-hating friends, regardless, or your Trump-supporting friends, or you or me or anybody else. This is the president. This is the administration that we are with going forward here. And this is why this is like a gift that he gave to everybody else to explain what's happening here. All of these policies now that are supposedly so controversial, it just took the onus on you to have to explain them all because he just tied every single one of them. Deportations tied to housing. The whole Venezuela thing, that was tied to national security. The border tied to all of these issues. He just explained them all away and defined exactly what they're doing and where they go ahead, and also addressed all of the major issues that everybody's going to need going forward. That's why I think it was so brilliant. It really, really was. So here's what it does for you and me and everybody. When anybody asks you, how can you vote for it? Why do they feel the need to deport all the illegals? I just, you got to go back to that Trump speech, before Christmas in 25. He said it's all tied down to housing and the economy. And they may not agree with you, but all of the explanations and all the questions that you and I have been asked for, all of these years, he just laid out last night. It was brilliant. But he was also playing Santa Claus. I thought this was actually just kind of cool because I think anytime they actually honor any of our veterans or military members or anything, he was also actually handing out gifts last night. It was cool. 1776
Along
gifts.
with the just passed One Big Beautiful Bill, tonight, I am also proud to announce that more than 1,450,000, think of this, 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas, a Warrior Dividend. In honor of our nation's founding in 1776, we are sending every soldier $1,776.
I already read it. I already saw it, heard it, saw it this morning. So the criticism, that's just a penny chit. Somebody actually, I think it was CNBC actually did how far this actually goes. Do you take the 1776? That would last you an average of a day and a half in today's economy. Of course, you know what I mean? It's like the people who take a gift and they start to tear it apart and, downgrade it and make a frowny face automatically. Is it symbolic, the 1776? I've already heard people call that cheesy. Of course it's symbolic. All of this is symbolism. Of course it is. Let me tell you something. That symbolism is important. Patriotism is important. Any gift that goes to our service members, I think, is valuable because they deserve it. But there was something way more important that happened last night. Now, they're starting to talk about some of the ratings for this speech, and they don't always, the networks don't always cover a presidential address like this. They don't always, take it, especially one before Christmas, Previous administrations, he's done it himself. I think the first administration, they would say, it's always just going to talk about holiday stuff and brag about what he's doing. And there was a lot of that, sure. But all of the networks, you noticed, covered it last night. So the ratings overnight were massive. Online, mainstream networks, social media covered this thing. It's a big reason why. Did you fall for the tease? Because I did. I 100% did. They always like to criticize the people in this administration, right? The mainstream media always says, they're not that smart. They're getting fooled. They're pulling the wool over his eyes. They're just not smart. Well, let me tell you something. Somebody in that administration is brilliant, and they know how to work the media. And now we have a president that is actually, let's not forget, a marketer, a builder, and a TV guy. He understands what gets eyeballs to watch. Did you hear that yesterday, all day long? Started about 3 p.m. Eastern time. Started to hear, it's going to be a big address tonight. Trump's going to, the word war is coming. He kept on seeing this repeated over and over again. He's going to talk about war. A war announcement is going to happen. I heard this from a lot of people yesterday, so I will be completely honest with you. It got me to watch. Who doesn't want to see that? What's going on? And of course, when you hear war, they're talking about Venezuela. Are we going to send troops? This concerns everybody, including Tucker Carlson talking about it yesterday. So here's how this happened. Somebody fed this information to a lot of different news sources. It was a tease to get people to watch, to pay attention to this speech last night, including Tucker. Did you happen to see this? Because I did. And I will tell you honestly, it got me to watch. Watch Tucker talking about this.
Is Trump going to start a war in Venezuela?
I don't know. I don't know when this program airs, the one that we're on right now. This thing's maybe live.
We're live now, and then
okay.
It'll be posted immediately. So now,
my sense is, I don't know the answer. I've certainly been on the phone a lot about it. I have no power. I'm a podcaster, but I'm very interested. And so here's what I know so far, which is that members of Congress were briefed yesterday that a war is coming, and it'll be announced in the address to the nation tonight at 9:00 by the president.
Was it? No. No. But here's how this works behind the scenes. Somebody, and I'm not blaming Tucker. I think it's honestly, if you were given that information and somebody asked you about it directly, would you not talk about it day of? Of course you would. And he said it right there. He says, I don't know anything. I'm a podcaster. I don't know anything. I'm just telling you, I've been told by sources, direct knowledge, that he's going to announce wartime activities tonight. If you were honestly, if you had a show, if you had a platform that Tucker Carlson had, would you not talk about that? Of course, I think anybody would. So I can't blame Tucker on that. But what you got to know and understand is that information, that tease, was sent out by people in the administration to get eyeballs on this. Of course, that word got to the networks, mainstream networks, who usually try their best to ignore Trump. Of course, that got out to independent journalists. Of course, that got out to social media platforms so they could have on it. And the result was, and I'm in that category too, I don't know if you were too, that got me to watch last night because that's big stuff. That's like, war is capital letter font, stuff you got to pay attention to. And is that still coming? Is any kind of a military strike happening with Venezuela soon? Are we going to increase our, blockade there? Probably. I don't know. It seems to be heading that way. All I know is you've got a president now in charge that understands how to grab all of the energy of the nation, talk about it, get all the eyeballs watching and people talking about it, including people like Tucker Carlson and even the mainstream networks and, little podcasters like me, and get the attention. And then what did he do? With all those eyeballs, knowing he had the attention of the world last night, set the stage for the administration going forward and the reason why they're doing everything they're doing right now. It was brilliant. I'm sorry, it just is. Objectively speaking, whether you like Trump or not, the way he addressed that message last night from 12 hours before starting the speech, to the speech itself, and then after in the follow-up, that was brilliant messaging. It just is. It's just, I always get a kick out of people that try to say, he's an idiot, he talks like a trucker, he's like, I'm sorry, that guy is the best communicator we have ever had in that office. And I mean that sincerely. You can laugh all you want, but consider all the factors and who he reaches, and he knows how to reach people. They always said that Clinton, maybe, but most definitely Reagan were the best communicator. They called Reagan the great communicator, right? Nobody knows how to persuade, grab attention, and communicate to the masses like President Trump does. Nobody does. That's outside of your opinion of the guy himself or even policy. You cannot deny that. That was something else. So let's keep that in mind and how that all works. All right. News department. Let's get an update on Providence, Rhode Island. They got a killer? Let me check in. No, they're clueless. And now I don't know if you caught this, and I paid way too much attention to this. I didn't watch that live, but I watched a lot of the clips, obviously, so I can talk about it with you. They hold these press conferences, and I'm telling you, these clueless clowns, the Brown University Police Department, the Providence cop, that mayor of Providence, all the other clowns, and now they have the attorney general. I swear to God, if I didn't know better, I would think they love holding these press conferences, despite the fact that they look like idiots because they love the attention and they love the camera time. They're like promoting at the end of another 45-minute press conference yesterday. This is the 5th in a row. They teased what time they'll be talking again tomorrow. Like, make sure you tune in, same channel, same time, and we'll talk about more lack of information we're giving you. But there was something important that happened yesterday in this. And you may be sick of hearing the story, but I think you got to pay attention to this one. This is where it's relevant to everybody. Because here's the question to ask. What other cities or universities or public buildings, institutions have disabled security cameras like Brown did? Remember we were saying yesterday it's a relevant question. All questions are on the table. Now, the Rhode Island Attorney General got up there yesterday in his camera time and he said, let us find it. Stop the nonsense. Stop with these questions and let us find the killer, although we want the public's help in finding him. Remember that? Well, the conclusion we came to was when you're met with extreme incompetence, just an absolute clown show and a lack of transparency, all questions are on the table. Don't ever feel afraid of asking any questions. And a really important question was asked yesterday, and I give this guy all the credit in the world. So I guess he's a radio host. You're going to hear him in the beginning. He's really hard to understand. He's got a very thick accent, but I think that's relevant to the story. So here you have, obviously, one of the people at the press conference, an Hispanic radio host. I guess he, must have I don't know who he is. Must have a show in Providence, Rhode Island. Keep in mind there, he is asking the question that has been asked before, and of course they get a non-answer, about security cameras. Why were they not? They've asked for 5 straight days. Why were security cameras not working? Well, this guy got a hold of some information. He said, I've been told that security cameras were disabled this past summer in August of 2025 to protect, get this, and again, this is coming from an Hispanic radio host, to protect illegals in the city so that they can't be found by ICE. This is the question by this guy, which I think is, that's what he's asking here. You can't hear too well at the beginning of the question, but that's what he says. Fascinating. And so is the non-answer.
The camera in that building that Brown put off because the sanctuary city law that we have. You don't want to record illegal immigrants, and you don't want to provide the footage to the FBI or immigration authority. One camera in that building, it come out from your detectives, they are friends of mine, they're angry at this investigation that these people in Brown University put the camera off, they can identify that person. You imagine how the family want to go through? Tell the truth to the media here. Putting cameras off.
We heard from both the Brown police chief and the provost at Brown, who have shared that they have been fully cooperative and been forthcoming with all data and evidence that they have. The city of Providence.
Okay, Mr. Mayor not answering the question. Of course, obviously, he's 5-6 days in a row of doing that. But the guy's question again, I know it was long. I know it was hard to understand. And the audio was low, and he's got a thick accent. I understand that. But the Hispanic radio host who asked that question, and God love him for doing that, he said, did this city administration allow the security cameras around Brown University to be disabled and otherwise taken down over the summer, August 2025, in order to protect illegals? It's coming from a Hispanic radio host, and they got the non-answer. When I hear a non-answer to a question like that, it tends to tell me it's true. So you dig a little further. And this article is from a human rights group itself, which is called, let me make sure I get this here, Free for the Future. This is their own article on their own website. So this is a press release basically from them. This is from August of 2025, not too long ago. Human rights groups to university administrators, that would be Brown University administrators, dismantle surveillance to defend free speech now, an open letter. So this is from this particular organization, but there were many human rights groups, they say plural, demanding that those security cameras be taken down. Now, combined with that little ditty of information, combined with the mayor's non-answer, tells me there's a reason why they haven't had a video surveillance shot, a clear shot like they normally would of anybody in any other normal scene of this guy, because the security cameras were not there. That's why they can't identify him. That's why the FBI doesn't have a clear shot of any kind of a suspect, because Providence, Rhode Island, worked with Brown and caved to these human rights groups to take down surveillance cameras to protect illegals from being deported by ICE. That's why. That's why this has been. It's right there. And somebody told this Hispanic radio host about that, and he had the guts to ask that question, and God love him. Did he get an answer? Of course he didn't. No, of course not. Wow. Unbelievable. So here's the relevant question. Again, all questions are on the table. What other schools, cities, institutions, museums, immigration centers, what other ones have disabled their cameras in the name of just immigration justice, but actually are putting people in danger? And now they don't have a suspect who shot kids at that school because they can't find a clear shot because security cameras were taken down. Wow. This has gone from a clown show to a horror show in Providence, Rhode Island. Anyway, let's lighten this up. Like I said, we are a week away from Christmas. Did you know today is National ReGifting Day? I know it's stupid. There's always some sort of a national day. I don't know why it would be a week before Christmas. Wouldn't like ReGifting Day be like right before or right after Christmas? I don't know. Maybe it's because of Hanukkah. I don't know. Whatever. But regifting is now a concept that is totally okay, at least according to 61% of the nation. You know, I love my social surveys, but this poll is ridiculous. I know it's not the most important thing in the world, but 61%, and apparently this phone poll asked thousands and thousands of people, so maybe it's legit. 61% think holiday regifts are acceptable now. Of course they're acceptable. A gift is a gift. That's the takeaway. Appreciate anything anybody gives to you, even if it was, something they didn't want. That's okay. You might remember where the whole term regifting. Now, the concept's been around forever, but the term regifting was in that Seinfeld episode way back when in 1995. Do you remember that one? It was a label maker Jerry got from Tim Watley. And Elaine said, yeah, I got Tim Watley, a label maker. And he found that he's a regifter. That's where it all happened. Well, a new poll found most Americans think regifting is not only acceptable, but they do it themselves. 61%, it's at least somewhat okay. 22%, and this number's growing, I've been tracking this, say it's totally fine. Don't you feel bad about regifting? I think it's great. Anyway, neither here nor there, but we're a week before Christmas. Thanks for finding me. I appreciate you. Again, that speech last night, fascinating how it went. He just you don't have to explain Trump's actions. He did it last night. Anybody questions you, direct him right to that speech last night. And keep an eye on this Brown University thing because it's getting worse and worse anyway. And regift as much as you want and take a regift with a smile. Actually, part of the podcast live version, the audio replay is on all the audio podcast channels, whichever you like. Also, the replay here on X and on YouTube and on Facebook. By the way, YouTube, give me a subscribe on there because that's really growing these days, apparently. So, because I put clips on there as well as the live show. So, find that as well. Just look for Wicked Radio with Bill Adams and you can find me. Whew! Week before Christmas. Get some shopping done today. It's also Thursday, so make it a wicked awesome one. I'll talk to you tomorrow.